Do you remember Liberace? I sure do. Unfortunately, as more and more time goes by, this legend is being quickly forgotten. During his lifetime, Liberace was one of the most famous entertainers in the world. As a result, he was rolling in dough. He owned 11 homes throughout his life, including properties in Malibu, Sherman Oaks, the Hollywood Hills, Beverly Hills, Lake Arrowhead, Las Vegas, Lake Tahoe, and Trump Tower in New York. However, Palm Springs held a special place in both his personal and professional life. And so in this show, I'm mostly going to focus on his home called the Cloisters in Palm Springs. But first, let me tell you a little bit about him. No one seems to know how to pronounce his first name. I've mostly heard Waju and Vlatsu. If you know for sure, feel free to let me know. His middle name was easy, Valentino, and his last name, of course, was Liberace. To make life easy for his friends, they simply called him Lee. His family, however, called him Walter. He was born on May 16th, 1919. He was an American pianist, known for his flamboyant persona and dazzling performances. He was a big deal. And honestly, when it comes to Liberace's career, you kinda had to see it to believe it. Born in Wisconsin to Italian and Polish parents, Liberace's career spanned over 4 decades, encompassing concerts, recordings, television, films, and endorsements.
The first music I heard was in my very own home. I was surrounded with it. My father played the French horn, my mother the piano, my sister Angelina played the piano, George played the violin, and it just seemed that some of it had to rub off on me. I'm very, very grateful to the wonderful inspiration my family has been to me during the early years that I spent in music. I started when I was 4.5 years of age, and it's been my life's work, and there isn't anything in this world I'd rather be doing than what I'm doing right now.
In his 20s, Liberace was performing at top clubs and eventually made his debut at the Persian Room in the Plaza Hotel in New York City in 1945. That was back in the days when ladies and gentlemen, when you can still use those terms, got all dressed up to go out for the evening. That must have been awesome. During this period, Liberace focused on perfecting his act, introducing the candelabra as his signature prop, inspired by the Chopin biopic, A Song to Remember, in 1945. He began using Liberace as his stage name, emphasizing in press releases that it was pronounced Liberace. Liberace. Say that 10 times. Liberace. By 1947, he was promoting himself as Liberace, the most amazing piano virtuoso of the present day.
That's the cutest little song, that Glowworm. I'm glad they brought it back to popularity again. It's been around for a few generations, you know. And you know something else? I never knew what a glowworm was. I had to look it up in the Encyclopedia Britannica. And I discovered that a glowworm is the wingless female of the species that we commonly refer to as the firefly. Now, the glowworm, the female, she can't fly around, so she lies down on the ground, and she has a kind of a blinking system in her tail, see? And she blinks that on and off, and then the male flies around, and he's got wings, you see, and he's got a blinker too, and he sees her blinking at him, and so he swoops down and gets acquainted, you see? Now that's the story of the glowworm, and I'm gonna do it both in its original form, and then we'll bring it up to date.
Liberace developed a powerful publicity machine that propelled him to stardom pretty quickly. In fact, in 1954, his New York City performance at Madison Square Garden earned him a record $188,000 for a single show. That's the equivalent to over $1.5 million in 2024. A year later, in 1955, he was earning $50,000 per week. That's the equivalent to nearly $600,000 a week in 2024. He was earning that at the Riviera Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, and he boasted over 200 official fan clubs with over 250,000 members. See what I mean? Liberace was a pretty big deal. At the peak of his popularity in the 1950s through the 1970s, Liberace became the world's highest paid entertainer, with iconic concert residences in Las Vegas and an extensive international touring schedule. If you ever saw Liberace in concert, please let me know in the comments below.
Come on in.
His annual earnings from live performances exceeded $1 million, with additional millions flowing in from television appearances. So that would be like earning about $10 million a year in 2024. That's pretty good.
Into the music room, and I'll show you my collection of miniature pianos. Here's part of the collection. These little pianos have been given me by friends from all over the world. And here's one that was made by a television viewer. It's a ceramic of yours truly and George and the maracas, and even George's head shakes. Now there is my coffee table. What do you know, it's a little piano too. And this is my den, where we spend many happy hours with our friends, and occasionally I entertain on that piano there. And these are some of the awards that we've received for our programs, and I'm particularly proud of these two. They're the Television Academy Awards, similar to the movie Oscars. They're called Emmys, and they were presented to me after our first year on television. I'm very, very grateful to you for making that possible. Well, ladies and gentlemen, do you like my house?
Frequently featured in major magazines, Liberace cemented his status as a pop culture icon and a superstar of his era. Liberace never had a wife or children, so he spent extravagantly on jewelry, automobiles, clothes, antiques, and he sorta collected mansions.
This is the bar, the piano-shaped bar off the pool area, and on either side of the bar are cabanas and dressing rooms. And the pool, we're actually looking at the back end of the house. It's very difficult to photograph the front of the house because it's on a very steep hill, and it's only been photographed once from the front, from a helicopter. And I didn't have one handy for you today, so we're seeing it from the back, from the pool area. This home, which is in Hollywood, by the way, is only a couple of minutes from Sunset Boulevard, which is one of the main thoroughfares. And yet it has amazing privacy.
His favorite residence was the Cloisters, his Mediterranean-style mansion in Palm Springs. Situated in a serene and picturesque area, the location at the intersection of Alejo and Belardo Road provided a peaceful retreat just blocks away from the beautiful mountain foothills. The original home was built in 1926 by Alva Hicks, a master carpenter, born in 1884, who moved from New York to Los Angeles in 1912, and then a year later in 1913, he ventured to Palm Springs. Throughout the 1920s and 1930s, Hicks built some of the area's most distinguished homes. He also built the Ingleside Inn, which remains in operation today. He also built many of the Desert Inn structures, along with the home of oil bigwig Tom O'Donnell, which you could actually check out today if you were in Palm Springs. For years, the house that Liberace would buy was a private residence in a quiet neighborhood. It was then acquired by a nearby church, supposedly for nuns to live in. But that story might not be accurate. It's possible all the stories referred to the house next door that Liberace later bought, which I'll talk about that soon. The story then goes that the church sold the property and the new owners converted the home to a motel that did not necessarily attract the best class of guests. Kind of a no-tell motel, if you know what I mean. Although it might not have always been that way. After all, we're talking about Palm Springs. In the late 1960s, it was in such a bad state that it was going to be torn down. Now at the time, Liberace was living just a couple of blocks away, and some of his friends found out that it was going to be torn down, and they brought Liberace over to see if he was interested in buying it. He adored the property, and he envisioned repurposing the old motel into a beautiful home. It's been said that the owners wanted $210,000 at the time. That was a lot of bread. So Liberace made an offer which they accepted. Now there are different accounts of what Liberace paid, but it was somewhere between $90,000 and $185,000. That would be anywhere from $800,000 to $1.6 million as of the time of this recording in 2024. It was then said that Liberace spent $136,000 in over 3 years having the motel renovated and repurposed into a beautiful home. That would be the equivalent of spending $1.2 million in 2024. But it was worth it. When renovations were completed, the enchanting mansion was roughly 8,000 square feet, with numerous bedrooms and bathrooms.
This home originally was a hotel, a small hotel. It had 32 guest rooms. And it was crying out to be saved when I found it about 4 years ago. It had decayed quite noticeably and was going to be torn down. And I used to come over here in the evenings and look at the mountains and look at this beautiful structure. I felt that it was worth saving, so I bought it and I turned it into a private home.
7 of the former cubicle-sized motel rooms became Liberace's master bedroom.
This is the master bedroom at the Cloisters. Most of the furnishings in this room are French Empire and Louis XV. It has a vaulted ceiling, and the most priceless possession in this room is the Louis XV desk, which was presented to Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, and on which the Franco-Russian alliance was signed. Most of the furnishings in this room were acquired through the purchase of a museum in Pensacola, Florida. And the desk is truly priceless, and it is insured for $275,000. As you can see, the dogs have the run of the house. Everybody says you have 2 beds in your bedroom. Well, one of them's for the dogs, and the other's for me.
His new home had 4 courtyards, a swimming pool, a lavish bar in the living room, and unique details like a semicircular driveway which allowed his guests to enter in style. Every room had French doors that opened out to charming courtyards. 2 cabanas were built alongside the swimming pool. A 2-story bell tower offered breathtaking views of the nearby mountains. The former motel lobby was repurposed as a living room, where Liberace kept a white grand piano that of course held a candelabra. Liberace called the home the Cloisters, and he moved in 1972.
I find it very peaceful and serene, and I like to just come out here and sit during the lovely evenings, which are very balmy, incidentally. The climate here in Palm Springs is very mild, and at most times of the year we have temperatures in the high 70s, the low 80s, even in the wintertime.
He furnished it with treasures he gathered from around the world, including pedigree antiques, fine linens, and numerous pianos. The home was filled with Liberace's eclectic collections, including antique furniture, chandeliers, and art, much of it gifted by fans. The master suite had a large jacuzzi tub, a throne-like toilet, and ornate decor that reflected his dramatic flair. The opulent dining and living rooms were adorned with sparkling chandeliers, romantic fireplaces, and stunning beamed and truss ceilings. Each bedroom had its own theme. For example, there was the Valentino bedroom, which featured a sleigh bed and other furnishings originally from Rudolph Valentino's home, Falcon Lair. Liberace bought all the items at an auction. There was also a vibrant safari room, which was adorned with a tiger painting, a lion tapestry, and a life-size horse sculpture. I wonder who had a safari room first, Liberace or Elvis? If you happen to know, kindly let me know in the comments below. Check this out. In his house, Liberace built a shrine dedicated to Saint Anthony, and he supposedly spent a lot of time in there praying. He was very religious, don't you know?
The Cloisters is faced on one end by the master bedroom and on the other end by the shrine to Saint Anthony. This is also a wonderful place to contemplate and find peacefulness. All the artifacts in this room come from churches that are now torn down. I found most of them at various auctions in Europe and around the country. The stained glass window, for example, is from Providence, Rhode Island. And since I live across the street from the Catholic Church, I am visited frequently by members of the church, and the entire house has been blessed by the local bishop.
The home had several dining areas. They range from an airy window-lined alcove with a Mexican tile floor to a formal dining room with heavy, carved, old Spanish furnishings.
The main dining room of the Cloisters. I call this the William Randolph Hearst room because most of the furnishings in here very closely resemble those in San Simeon, which was the residence of William Randolph Hearst. One afternoon I was visited by William Randolph Hearst's son, and he brought over some photographs of furnishings that he thought I might be interested in that would suit the architecture of this home. And when he showed me the pictures, they were almost identical to the furnishings that you see in this room. So I thanked him and said I already had them. It's a marvelous cabinet. Everyone says, how do you open it? Because there are no handles, and you just push it in like that. The glassware is from Czechoslovakia, but actually I bought it at Disney World in Orlando, Florida. The candelabras are from a Spanish church. I have a pair of them, one on either side of the fireplace. This is perhaps one of the largest silver plateaus that I've ever seen anywhere in the world. Here's a marvelous cabinet I found in the East. It's from Italy, and it serves a lovely purpose. When we're dining, we want to watch TV.
Frank, how much do you reckon to want, Mr. Howard?
Well, it's convenient. I could use $100.
I guess we could all use $100. You'll notice the paintings all have a sort of a religious significance because of the religious architecture of this house and the fact that it's called the Cloisters. Down below we have some buffet serving pieces. I serve a lot of buffets as well as sit-down dinners. And of course, everywhere you look, there are candelabras, naturally. When I serve a buffet, I have some French porcelain menu markers that look like this, and then with a marking pen, I mark the various dishes that I'm serving.
At least one of the bathrooms I heard had 24-karat gold fixtures, and one of them had wallpaper that, well, let's just say you wouldn't want your kids to use. One of the many bathrooms had a step-down bathtub fit for a sultan's palace beneath a crystal chandelier equal to a king's drawing room.
This is the bath, and the sound you hear in the background is the whirlpool tub. It's a marvelous, relaxing, sort of therapeutic kind of bath. You can either use it without the whirlpool or with the whirlpool, which I really enjoy. This champagne bubble bath, if you want bubbles. Since the room is completely surrounded by mirrors, you can see reflections wherever you look. Reflections of the chandelier, the ferns. In fact, they go into infinity. The statue is from Rome, and it's made of white Carrara marble.
Vermilion pots and pans dotted the wall of a bright kitchen, where Liberace personally cooked Italian specialties for his guests.
I bet you thought it was another piano. Actually, it's a refrigerator and a freezer. This is the kitchen in my guest house, and it's very musical, as you see. We've turned out some real symphonic food in this kitchen. One of my favorite hobbies is cooking. Today I'm going to cook a very special lasagna recipe. I call it Liberace lasagna. Step number 1, remove all diamond rings. Not only makes the rings messy, but it might fall in the sauce.
Liberace bought the house next door for his mother, but she didn't like living in Palm Springs. She thought it was kind of boring, so he eventually moved her to Vegas. Sadly, the house next door has mostly been abandoned since the 1980s. I heard it was owned by a wealthy man who lives overseas, and the house just kind of sits empty and is falling apart. It's a bit of a mystery why Liberace sold it, but I guess after his mom moved out, he just didn't need it anymore. And so he sold it as long as he could maintain a lifetime lease on the property, since it had a 4-car garage that stored his limousine and custom cars.
The most elaborate car of my car collection is this custom Landau Rolls-Royce limousine. It's the most elaborate and also the most expensive. There were only a few of these made, and the thing that makes it so special is the Landau top. Would you like to see how it works? I'll show you. Would you mind showing him how it works, Bob? There you go. This is car number 3. And as you can see, it has piano keys going all along the side of the station wagon. And the license number is 1 piano. The 4th car is a custom-built Cadillac limousine designed by Durham. There were 2 of these cars made. The other one was a bulletproof model designed for Lady Bird Johnson when Lyndon B. Johnson was President of the United States. It has some unusual appointments on the inside. Would you like to see them? I had a bar designed for this car by Coachcraft, who does work on Rolls Royces. And it's quite unique in that I'm sorry, I'll have to do that over. And this is car number 5. This is an English taxi cab. It's a 1957, and I bought it in London, and I had it shipped to the States. I changed the color of it because the English cabs are black. The flooring is carpeted in red carpeting, and the interior is also carpeted, and the upholstery is black leather, and the meter works, and it's in the Old English coinage of pounds, shillings, and pence. I use this taxi to pick up guests when they come to visit me, and it really kind of gives them a thrill when I pull up at the airport in this wonderful old cab. This is car number 6. This is car number 7. This is a new replica of a Model A 1930 Ford Roadster. The number plate on this car is, appropriately, I am cute. This is car number 8. This car is a Bradley GT. It's built on a Volkswagen chassis, and it's a customized car. It's one of a kind. And in order to get in it, you put the window up like this. The interior is done in crushed velour. There are no doors on this car, as you can see, so it's a little tricky getting in and out, but it's fun. Well, I showed you some of my pet toys and my cars, and I've come to the conclusion that I'll have to put this little sign up somewhere in my home. The difference between men and boys is the price of their toys. What do you think about that?
Though Liberace owned many homes, he considered the Cloisters to be his main home, and it is where he spent most of his time when not touring and not in Vegas. Word has it was a cool place to go for Halloween, and his Christmas parties were legendary.
These are the director's chairs that I had made up last Christmas. Instead of putting name cards on all the gifts, I had names put on the chairs in front of the gifts for all my guests and friends and family. And then when they took their gifts home, they took their chair with them. This is the gazebo. It's at the far end of the property, and it's a lovely place to have lunch under the grape arbor. When the grapes are in season, all you have to do is reach up and pick a bunch, and they're very sweet, seedless grapes.
The garage was converted to a family room in the late 1970s. Interestingly, that is where Liberace spent his final days. From that room, he could hear his loyal fans outside having a vigil as they awaited news of his death. Yes, his fans knew that he was dying, and they spent time outside of his home waiting for the news that he had passed away. Liberace knew this, and word has it he was happy to hear his fans outside and how much they cared about him. On February 3rd of 1987, a Catholic priest arrived at the Cloisters, and he administered the last rites to Liberace, who sadly passed away in the late morning of February 4th, 1987 at the age of 67, just 3 weeks after being treated at Eisenhower Medical Center for what his staff described as the effects of a watermelon diet. Now that's not as silly as it sounds. You see, toward the end of his life, Liberace was indeed on a watermelon diet in hopes that he could cleanse his body of the virus that was killing him. Liberace's body was finally laid to rest alongside his mother and brother at Forest Lawn, Hollywood Hills Cemetery in Los Angeles.
I would like to be remembered as a kind and gentle soul, and as someone who made the world a little better place to live, because I had lived in it. I would like to think that my music would be remembered, and also some of the beautiful things that I have collected in my homes.
In 1994, he was honored with a Golden Palm Star on the Palm Springs Walk of Stars. Liberace's family and foundation opted to sell the entertainer's favorite residence because the Palm Springs City Council turned down a request to turn it into a museum, which was really a shame. I mean, it was on a corner lot. They could have acquired the property next door again that Liberace used to own. There's a big parking lot across the street, and on the other side is a golf course. It would have been a great thing for Palm Springs to do, and it's a shame they didn't move forward with it. Either way, proceeds from the sale benefited the foundation and educational scholarships. The property was purchased by a gentleman named Stephen Hemming for roughly $800,000, give or take 50 grand, who restored it and hosted legendary parties there for the next 20 years. It is unknown who owns the home today, but it is clear that it will never be a Liberace museum, which once again is kinda sad. Incidentally, if the current owners would like to invite me over, please feel free to do so. I will even bring the tea and scones. I am not kidding about that. Incidentally, the Liberace Foundation for Creative and Performing Arts was established in 1976 by Liberace, who generously endowed it with his personal collection and $4 million in cash. That was back in 1976. That's a lot of bread. That's a lot of bread today. It sure was a lot of bread back then. He expressed his desire for the foundation to share his good fortune with aspiring musicians at the beginning of their careers. The foundation later purchased the entire shopping plaza at the southwest corner of Tropicana and Spencer, which was subsequently renamed Liberace Plaza. Sadly, the Liberace Foundation announced plans to close the museum in September of 2010, and a month later the Liberace Museum closed, quote, indefinitely but not forever, end quote, according to the chairman of the Liberace Foundation Board of Directors. Following the closure, the museum would continue to showcase its collection of costumes through traveling exhibitions managed by Exhibits Development Group. The Liberace Foundation announced in 2015 that the museum collection is being housed inside one of Michael Jackson's former residences in Las Vegas and features a 5,000 square foot exhibition space. As of April 7th, 2016, a new venue called the Liberace Garage was opened within the Hollywood Cars Museum, showcasing all 8 vehicles from the Liberace Museum. The exhibit also features the rhinestone-encrusted Radio City Baldwin piano and stage costumes worn by Liberace.
Now here's a record I know you'll remember.
I don't know about you, but I really wish there was one place that was an incredible Liberace museum. And so if there's any wealthy men and women who could help make that happen, please do so. I'll do whatever I can to help you. So, what do you think of the Cloisters when it was owned by Liberace? If you were rolling in dough, would you live in a place like that? You know I would, especially in Palm Springs. Weather there is incredible. Kindly remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because there will be more shows like this one, and I hope you check those out too. This channel is sponsored by campfireshop.com, where you could order the highest quality and exclusive candles, herbal supplements, teas, and more. So if you want to see more shows like this one, please go to campfireshop.com and buy a bunch of stuff. It really helps me out a lot. I'd also appreciate it if you could become a member of my channel and or join me on Patreon, where you can watch exclusive walk-in tours of cool places I've been to. You could also leave a super thanks in the comments below. You know that Liberace was a big animal lover, right? He had a ton of dogs. So kindly be kind to all of our fellow earthlings, and please do not harm them. And do yourself a favor and go to a local shelter and adopt a cat or a dog or both. You and they will be very glad that you did. Until next time, I wish you safe travels on all your journeys.
I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you.